Good morning. You are going to be starting in your new math book, Volume 2, Unit 4, and we're going to begin working with properties of numbers. For period 2, I'm going to have Hayden, Natalia, Megan, and Amity pass out the books to everyone in the classroom. The books are in alphabetical order, so they're just going to pass them out to you. You're going to use them. Notice page 5 is the page that you're going to turn to. And at the end of the period, if you're sitting in seat 3, you're going to pick up the math books and put them back by matching the color of the numbers on your table and the color of the places where the books go on the counters in the room. And for period 4, Israel is going to show the substitute where the books are. Again, the books are in alphabetical order. And the substitute will call your name. You'll come up and get your book, open up to page 5, and be ready to go. So pause the video here until everyone has their books and then come back in. Okay? See you in just a minute. So you have your books now. You're open to page 5. And as we usually do, the what, the why, and the how. Today we will learn and apply algebraic properties of numbers. Why are we learning this? Well, the properties of numbers allow us to see how numbers can be used to make equivalent expressions that allow us to simplify complicated expressions and solve equations. How we will know we have learned this. 1, we will identify the property. 2, rewrite the expression using the given property. And 3, evaluate to make sure that we have used the property correctly. So, here we go. We're looking at vocabulary first, and these are the properties that we're going to be using. The first one is the commutative property. And in this example, I have 6 plus 2 and 2 plus 6. They both equal 8. And we're using multiplication, 6 times 2 and 2 times 6. And again, both equal 12. So I'm noticing in the commutative property, the numbers move around the addition sign or around the multiplication sign. And I'm thinking of the word commuter. A commuter is someone who drives to work and then at the end of the day drives back home. And they commute from home to work and then from work to home. The commutative property, the numbers move. The operation sign doesn't. And I'm also noticing that it's just one operation, either addition or multiplication. Now, the distributive property, you are distributing the number outside, or the first number in this case, by the numbers inside. So I have 5 times 17. And notice what happens here. I have 17 broken up to 10 plus 7. And I'm going to distribute that 5. 5 times 10, 5 times 7. Or if I have 5 times g plus 10. I'm thinking, well, let me think of factors. 5 and 10. 5 times what number would give me 10? Well, 5 times 2. So after I distribute this 5 on the outside, 5 times g, and I get 5g. 5 times 2, and I get 10. We're going to do a lot more work with the distributive property. So if you're looking at this going, I don't get it, what did you just do? Don't worry about it. We're going to spend more time practicing and looking at how you can factor out common factors for both the number that you're multiplying by and the number inside the parentheses, just like we did here. So don't expect to grasp this with just one time. We're going to work a lot with the distributive property. We're just beginning. And then the associative property. I have parentheses 1 plus 2, parentheses, plus 3 is the same as 1 plus parentheses 2 plus 3 parentheses. Now, I'm noticing that my numbers stay in the same order. 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. I'm noticing the only thing that moves is the parentheses. First, I group the 1 and the 2. Then I group the 2 and the 3. So these are the properties that we're going to be using and talking about and practicing. So let's take a look at this organizer and see if we can identify some of the visual clues and some key things to look for. So commutative, again, I've got 6 plus 2 equals 2 plus 6, or 6 times 2 equals 2 times 6. Visual clues, the numbers move around the operation sign. The 6 and the 2 switch places here. So they move around the addition sign. They move around the multiplication sign. And commutative property works with addition and multiplication. It does not work with division and subtraction. The associative property, I'm associating or grouping numbers together. And again, I'm going to look at, I have 2 plus 6 plus 5. 2 plus 6 plus 5. My numbers did not move. They stay exactly the same. 2 times 6 times 5. 2 times 6 times 5. The only thing that's moving here are the parentheses. I'm grouping these differently. And visual clues, I have 3 or more numbers. The parentheses move, not the numbers. And group numbers using addition or multiplication. So one operation, 2 sets of parentheses. One operation, 2 sets of parentheses. The parentheses move or change place. The numbers do not. And again, looking at the distributive property, I have 2 and in parentheses 6 plus 5. I can distribute this 2 on the outside, 2 times 6 plus 2 times 5. So I'm multiplying the numbers inside the parentheses by the number outside of the parentheses. And visual clue, I have in my original distributive property or distribution, 1 set of parentheses, 2 operations, multiplication, and the 2 outside of the parentheses indicates multiplication. So I have multiplication and addition. The number outside of the parentheses is multiplied with the numbers in the parentheses, just like we did here. Okay, so let's begin with problem of the day. So in your workbook, copy down these 3 examples. We're going to do the first one together, and then you're going to do the next 2 by yourself. You should be almost done copying these numbers down. Okay, and I'm looking for the distance between these 2 points. So the first thing I'm going to look at is the -3 and the -3 are the same. That's my x coordinate. So I'm going to use my y coordinate. Now we're going to have to visualize where this would be in a coordinate plane because you're not looking at quadrants to see where they're located. But I'm noticing that my y coordinates are both positive. So I know that these both have to be in quadrant 1 because both x and y are positive. So if both of my quadrants or both of my points are in the same quadrant, I'm going to subtract. So 9 subtract 2, or the absolute value of 9, since these are both positive, it's not crucial that I put the absolute value, but that is what we want to use. The absolute value of 9, subtract the absolute value of 2. 9 subtract 2 is 7. So the distance is 7 spaces. Now, let's take a look at this next one. I'm going to get you started, and then you're going to continue the rest. This is negative. This y is negative 7. This y is positive 2. They are not in the same quadrant. This one is in quadrant 4. This one is in quadrant 1. Actually, I should have made that 4 Roman numerals. Quadrant 4, quadrant 1. So they are in different quadrants. Remember, different quadrants you're going to add. And the 12 is the same. So your x is the same. You're going to use your y coordinates. And this is the same as this one. 12, negative 15. This is in quadrant 4. X is positive, y is negative. This one is quadrant 1. So you know you're going to, because they're in different quadrants, you're going to add. So take 2 minutes and find the distance between these points, and then write your objective, and then we'll check and see how you did and continue. So pause here, and in 2 minutes, check back in. Okay, so let's check and see how you did. And we're going to add the absolute value of negative 7 and 2. Well, the absolute value of negative 7 is 7. 7 plus 2 is 9. So the distance is 9 units, or 9 spaces. And we have 15 and 9 because they're in different quadrants. Again, we said we're going to add. So I'm going to add the absolute value of negative 15 plus the absolute value of 9. The absolute value of negative 15 is 15 plus 9. Okay, 15 plus 9 is 24. Nice. So now, on to the input model, and make sense of the problem and persevere in solving, and find a strategy to help solve the problem. That's what we're going to be looking at with these two. So I'm going to remind myself of the steps again. Identify the property, rewrite the expression using the given property, and evaluate. And this is telling me to use the distributive property. Oh, again, this is input model, so you should already have done this, but just in case you forgot. Pencils are down, you're looking up here at the board. You are not looking around, you are not talking to anyone else. Focused on what I'm doing here, because then we're moving to structured, guided practice. So here we go. I want to use the distributive property. And what I'm looking at here is the result after I have distributed. Now, we did factors earlier in the year, and I'm going to look at the 4 and the 36. And I'm going to think, what number multiplied by 4 is going to give me 36? And that would be 9. So I know I can pull out a 9. So when I rewrite this using the distributive property, I'm going to have 4, and in parentheses, I'm going to have y plus 9. Now, you may be saying, How do you know that's the correct answer? You're going to be able to get your original answer back again? And my response is, I don't know. Let's try. 4 times y is 4y. We don't know the value of y. So I know 4 times y is going to be 4y. Plus 4 times 9. 4 times 9 is 36. And sure enough, I end up with the expression that I started with. So when you see 4 times y plus 36, think of the distributive property, and the factor that you're going to use is 9. 4 times 9 is 36. That's how you're going to rewrite that. Again, if you're looking at the distributive property and thinking, I'm still really confused with that, just put that in the back of your mind, and let's take a look at the rest of these and know that we're going to keep practicing with the distributive property. So now, rewrite using the commutative property and then evaluate. Commutative property, I'm thinking of the word commuter. Commuter means I go back and forth. So commutative property, my numbers can move. So I'm looking at 20 plus 10 and 2/10 plus 8. And how could I group these together? Well, I don't want to be adding this just yet. And I'm thinking if I can write this as 20, and if I can move that 8 and put that 8 right here, and then have the 10 and 2/10, 20 plus 8 is 28. 28 plus 10 and 2/10 is 38 and 2/10. So this would equal 38 and 2/10. If I add this, I'm going to add 10 and 2/10 and 8, and that's going to give me 18 and 2/10. And 18 plus 20 is going to give me 38 and 2/10. So I get the same answer when I evaluate both of them. And my numbers switch places. So that's the commutative property. Now, rewrite using the associative property and then evaluate. So I've just identified the property, and then I'm going to rewrite the expression. Well, I know with the associative property, I can associate the numbers that I have here in a way that, in any way that I want, but in a way that's going to make it a little easier. So right now I have 10 times and in parentheses, 2 times 13. Well, I'm thinking it might be easier to group 10 times 2 and then multiply that times 13. 10 times 2 is 20. 20 times 13, well, I know that 2 times 13 is going to be 26. 20 times 13 is going to be 260. Okay? Now, if I look at 2 times 13, well, I know 2 times 12 is 24. So 2 times 13 would be 26. 26 times 10 would be 260. So I identified the property. I rewrote the expression using the given property. And I evaluated, and they're all equal. Both sides are equal. So now, structured guided practice. We're going to take a look at these. We're going to discuss them. You are not writing anything down on the first couple of these until I write it in my book or on the flip chart. So I want to rewrite using the associative property. So underline associative property in your book. And then I'm going to think associative. I can group these or associate them differently. So I've identified the property, and then I'm going to rewrite the expression using the given property. So I'm going to rewrite the whole thing here. 7 plus 3, parentheses, plus 6. I want you rewriting this in your book too. So rewrite the expression, then put an equal sign. And I know with the associative property, my numbers do not change. So my parentheses went around 7 plus 3 at the beginning. So now I'm going to put my parentheses here. And I'm going to evaluate both sides. 7 plus 3 is 10. 10 plus 6 is 16. 7 plus 3 plus 6 is 9. 7 plus 9 is 16. So finish writing both sides of the equation and show that even though you've changed the groupings, your answer is still the same. Okay, this next one, rewrite using the commutative property. Underline commutative property in your book, and then we're going to rewrite the expression using the given property. Well, again, I'm going to think of the word commuter. And when I think of commuter, I know it's someone who drives to work and then at the end of the day drives back home. They change location. They don't stay in one place. Okay? So I know that my numbers are going to move around the operation sign. So here I have 6 times 20 times 5/10. So I'm going to switch the 6 and the 20. 20 times 6 times 5/10. Okay, well, 6 times 20, that's 120. 120 times 5/10. Well, if I come over here and multiply 120 times 0.5, this is 0, this is 0. 1 times 5 is 5 plus 1 more. 2 times 5 is 10. That's why the zero's here. Is going to be 6. One number in the decimal point, and my answer is 60. Now, I'm also going to think about another way of thinking about the 5/10. Another way to write 5/10 is 1/2. Okay? And if I take half of 120, I'm going to get 60. Okay, and our answer here was 60.5. Okay, And again, I've got 120 times 5/10, and my answer is still 60.5. Oh, no, not 0.5. What am I doing? Why did I put that there? 60. I think I said because the 0.5. There. And half of 120 is 60. So now, let's take a look at rewrite using the distributive property. And remember, I'm looking at 5 and 15, and I'm thinking, 5 times what number is 15? And of course, that would be 5 times 3. So I'm going to rewrite this here. Equals. I know I'm going to be multiplying by 5, so I'm going to pull out my 5, and then in the parentheses, P plus 3. Remember, we looked at the relationship between 5 and 15, and we said 5 times 3 would be 15. So now I'm going to distribute this. 5 times P is 5P. 5 times 3 is 15. And I get my same expression back again. Okay, final check for understanding. Now, I want you to work on these two. Remember, this is the distributive property, and you're thinking of 3 times what number would give you 3.6. Well, let's take the decimal out of there. And 3 times what number would give you 36? And then think, how would I make that a decimal? And notice where your decimal point is here. Okay? Or if you want, you can just divide the 3 into 3.6 to find out what your factor is going to be here. But either way, work on final check for understanding with 1 and with 2. And because today is a SEM day, by the time you finish with these two, we'll just have time to check in and then collect the books, put them back where they belong, and then you'll be ready to move on to your next class. Hopefully everyone is listening and being respectful and responsible. If not, you know what the consequences are. So please choose wisely. So pause the video here. Take 3 minutes. Work out both the distributive property and the associative property, and then check back in. Okay? Pause here, 3 minutes, and then we'll continue. Okay, so we were talking about this being the distributive property. And don't let the decimal confuse you, because I'm thinking 3 times 12 would be 36. But this has a decimal, 3 6/10. So 12, if I put my decimal here, 1 2/10. So now I can rewrite this as the distributive property. I'm going to distribute the 3. 3 times parentheses r plus 1 2/10. And let's make sure I get this expression back again. 3 times r is 3r plus 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times 2 is 6. I have one number after the decimal point. and I get my 3.6 back, or 3 6/10. Now, this is the associative property. I know the associative property means I group numbers differently. My numbers do not change. So I have 12 plus 4 plus 21. Well, my parentheses are around 4 and 21, so I'm going to put them around 12 and 4 here. But let's work this one out first. 4 plus 21 is 25 plus 12 is 37. And let's see what happens on this side. 12 plus 4 is 16. 16 plus 21 is 37. And they're the same on both sides. Very nice. So check your own answers. If you got them both correct, put a check mark at the top. And we will continue with properties of numbers on Thursday. So bye for now.